c4, pawn to g6, and e4. And thus begins one of the most crazy and insane and amazing games in recent chess history. And today, your friendly neighborhood ASMR Chess will take you through it all. We saw bishop to g7 and d4 by Grigory, Serper, with the white pieces here. This was in 1993. Grandmaster Grigory Serper, born in present-day Uzbekistan, then part of the Soviet Union, was playing in the St. Petersburg tournament, the Open tournament, against a Greek grandmaster called Ioannis Nikolaidis, and I'm probably butchering that name, so sorry about that. But this game is just amazing. We like sacrifices as chess players, right? d6. So how about a game knight to c3 where the white sacrifices every single piece. The queen is even sacrificed multiple times. Knight to f6. At this point I have to give a shout out to my awesome patron Alex, who suggested that I covered this game. So thanks for the idea. It's been a pleasure to analyze. Knight to e2 and knight b to d7. I think this game is the game that I have analyzed for the channel so far that was the easiest to remember, because after the opening stage every single move is just spectacular and memorable. So there you go. May look odd with the knight here on e2, but the point is that it wants to go to g3 to have influence over the center still, but also it can defend a castle king here, and it has attacking potential against a potentially castled black king here on the king side. So a bit of an unusual but quite interesting opening setup for white. We saw c6 from the strong Greek grandmaster, and Grigory Serper played bishop to e2, the square that was vacated by the knight when the knight went to g3. We saw a6 and bishop to e3. So these small pawn moves, they could seem a little strange, but the point is to be able to later play b5, which is a common idea in many structures, and you will see that exact idea happen. But first, we see some aggression, some expansion here with h5 on the king side. And this pawn could potentially harass this knight here and saying, you know, you put your knight in an unusual square, I'm going to take advantage of that, I'm going to win a tempo, push your knight to an awkward square, I can then push my knight further, attack your castle king, and black is saying that he wants to punish white for the unusual opening setup. So the question is if he will be successful or not. What do you think? What do you think? Grigory Serper just played f3. And this f3 move, again, could look a little weird, but if you check out some of my Tal videos, you know that this f3 move is actually included in a lot of these setups with pawns on e4, d4, and c4. It's just solidifying white's strong center, pawn center here. So black shifted his attention from the queen side, the king side here, to the queen side. With pawn to b5 that he prepared with a6 and c6. And instead of trying to capture here or allow this pawn to be captured, Serper played pawn to c5, staking his first claim in black's side of the board. So you see these 32 squares here, that is the kingdom of the black king. And now the usurper, Grigory Serper, is coming and invading here. But this is all friendly. This is not the bad kind of invasion. This is in a chess game. And I think we should keep invasions to chess games. But that's a whole different story. This could not be tolerated. So, pawn takes, like so. Pawn takes, like so. And notice, of course, that this pawn here is now an outpost, a soldier, just defending the newly conquered land here in black's side of the board, backed up by the bishop here. So there is no knight takes c5. We then saw queen to c7, staking a claim on this diagonal here from h2 to b8, this diagonal here. And black has a strategy concerning this diagonal that we will see. White did something that I always recommend that players do, and that is to castle. You may have noticed that black has not castled. And sometimes, even though a position looks peaceful, and it looks like you will have all the time in the world to castle, something can go wrong very quickly. Something can materialize out of thin air, as if the magician from Riga himself had waved his magic wand, and Kaisa, the chess goddess, had bestowed some divine inspiration to your opponent, and suddenly something just absolutely amazing can happen, and it can be, well, it can be deadly for you. And often, if you have castled, it's not as deadly. So here, Grigory, he castled, and his black opponent here, who is a grandmaster, and is a very strong player, according to my research, like probably one of the strongest players in Greece, sort of misjudged the position and said that he was ready to go for an attack. So he pushed with h4 here, asking a question of the knight, and it is awkward for the knight. The knight has to go to h1. And now we see the point of this queen c7 move on this diagonal here. Because h5 kicked the knight to an awkward square. Also, it vacated, and I mean h4, it vacated h5 so that the knight can go to h5. And now it coordinates with the queen and can come in here and sort of say, okay, you are claiming some land in my kingdom, but I will come in with a stronger piece and claim some land in your kingdom. And to boot, I will be close to your king. If you exchange, I will come in with the queen. Maybe you can imagine bishop takes, queen takes, and then maybe a bishop coming up to back up the queen, looking for checkmate ideas here on h2. These are some of the themes that's going on with the coordination of these pieces and this diagonal. So Grandmaster Grigory Serper was not quite ready to go completely nuts and sacrifice all his pieces, because, as Bobby Fischer said, tactics flow from good positions. So he wanted to make sure that he removed all counterplay from black before he launched his deadly attack. Remove all the counterplay from black before launching your deadly attack. Queen to d2. Adding another defender to the f4 square. So here we see e5. Not castling. Basically, black is saying, I will not castle, because that will give you more time to develop. I will launch my attack immediately, and then I will save a move. And he's basically banking on white not being able to break through his defenses. So that he's saying, okay, my king will be safe. You cannot break through. I don't need to castle, and that way I can have time to build up my attack. Sort of making up for the fact that he's playing with the black pieces and therefore is one move behind. On many days, I guess this would have worked just fine. But Grigory Serper was unusually inspired on this fine day in 1993 in the St. Petersburg Open. First of all, he said, I need to improve this knight. Actually, the king was like, hey, you're not supposed to be in the corner. Haven't you listened to ASMR chess? What? Who is ASMR chess? Like, he's this weird whisper guy on YouTube, and he always says that you need to keep the knights closer to the center. Oh, would that be because I only have like 2 legal moves here? That one and that one. And in the center I'm like an octopus with like 8 legal moves. Exactly. That's like one of the things he says. So get on out. Go to f2. Right, sir. Okay. Yes, my king. Oh. Okay. That was silly. That was really silly. Well, we're having some fun with chess. I hope you are having fun. I hope you're enjoying the game. Right now, it's a normal game right now. But I promise you, in just a few moves, it'll go completely nuts. Okay, so here we saw an interesting idea, knight to f8. And that looks weird, but it has a point. This knight wants to go to e6. And what is the square that these knights are looking at? is f4. And you can see a knight coming here. You can only exchange one, then you put another knight there. This bishop is open up here. If we push this pawn, this rook could get open against the king. Stuff could get bad quite fast. So, with the white pieces in this situation, you can choose to say, okay, that plan looks dangerous. I will maybe play knight to d3 to put another defender here. You could say to try to stop the counterplay. Or you could take a different sort of positional approach, and you can say, okay, with all these ideas that you did, Black, with the idea of coming to f4 and all of that, okay, I see all that, but what I also see is what you have sacrificed in order to develop this strategical concept of yours. Not only didn't you castle your king, but this knight makes it so that you're like 2 moves away from castling. And it's not doing anything at the moment. It has spent 2 moves, 1, 2, to block the king from castling. And it needs 2 moves more in order to do anything at all. And this pawn here and this knight here, they only really work together with the queen if you get the attack going. And in order to get the attack going, you need at least 2 more moves with this knight. Rooks are not connected. This bishop is a little awkward on the back rank still. Is there maybe a way to say your position is fragile and I'll just throw a wrench into your machinery and all the cogs and all the gears will crumble trying to chew on this wrench because they are all set for an attack. They are not set for defense. They are not set to just face the oncoming onslaught. That is maybe what Grigory Serper was thinking. Or maybe he was just feeling the inspired hand of Kaisa. Whatever the reason, he played the amazing move a4 in this position. And it is amazing because of the frankly absurd but also absurdly sound follow-up. Because after a6, a5, the very natural move that you have to take into consideration is pawn to b4, harassing the knight. Because the knight only has awkward squares to go to, since this square is defended, and when the knight moves, we can further solidify this pawn, and now we have 2 pawns in your camp, in White's camp, and it could be quite bad. But the idea here is just mind-blowing. The idea is knight d5. And that is attacking the queen. And it is threatening to come here, protected by the pawn. It is it's a big problem. Except for the fact, of course, that that square is protected. It's defended. So just it's your turn now. Go capture that knight. For glory. For my queen. So the knight was sacrificed. That's the first one to go. So do you capture with the queen or with the pawn? What would you do? The correct concept here is to capture with the pawn. You would say the queen threatens the rook. It comes with some tempo. But if you are an experienced chess player, you will know the strength of two protected passed pawns in your opponent's territory. But if you are a learning or developing chess player, just how strong these two guys are could actually be quite surprising. It was for me when I first learned about this concept. It was in an amazing game where Geller beat Fischer, actually, where I understood that two guys like this, like a pawn roller they call it, because they can protect each other going forward, can be just, be a force to be reckoned with, really. And they do look scary. And this pawn here also protects this square. So it also has, like, this attack also has a defensive idea, because now this knight can't get in there. So the whole strategical attacking concept that Black had developed is also thwarted by this attack. Of course, if Black can repel the attack, he will be up material. So that's actually for a grandmaster enough to just win the game. So like the gauntlet really has been thrown, and yeah, the game really is on here. Black, the Greek grandmaster, plays pawn to f5. And the idea here is there's a lot of tactical stuff going on, and there's a threat of playing f4 and trapping the bishop and all of that. But there's also just a sort of conceptual idea, which is you are getting cramped, really cramped over here on the queen side, and without f5 you're also getting cramped on the king side. But with f5 you give room to the king, you give just more space for you to maneuver, and you are just trying this idea for a counterattack as well. So that's an important idea to remember when you are defending. Of course, you want to trade pieces, because attacking pieces are worth more than defending pieces. So if you are defending against a strong attack, trading pieces is good. Also, getting a less cramped position will benefit you, because when your opponent is all up in your face, you will have less space. And I can't find a rhyme with space. Your opponent is all up in your face, you will have less space. You'll finish that rhyme for me in the comment section, hopefully. Go into the comment section and make a poem that starts like that, and where the point is that when you get cramped, your opponent will have all these nice squares to maneuver on, and say, maybe I need the knight over here and the bishop over here, and they have all this space, and you are cramped, so your pieces will be less effective. And that's why you want to make space, because you can just it could be like you're playing against Karpov, and it's just a tide coming in, and you'll drown like that, or get constricted by the boa constrictor. Okay, so let's go with the pawns. d6, taking the queen. Queen has to move, but queen has c6, and try to make a light square blockade of the pawns. Let's say maybe we can also play bishop to d7, just lock these pawns here for some time, and make a counterattack, get the king castled, we'll be up material, and we will nullify these pawns, we will negate their power, we will be alright if we can just lock them. And we saw one sacrifice, but I promised you we're going to sacrifice every piece. So let's sacrifice a piece. Should we sacrifice a piece? What piece would you sacrifice here? The correct move, you can run this through Stockfish. The correct move is bishop to b5, which is a very obvious move if this pawn wasn't here, because it's just pinning the queen to the king. Queen can't move, you're just losing the queen. Classic. The thing is that this pawn is here. So, black, of course, captures the bishop. And so, here is the idea, the reason, the justification of the sacrifice. Pawn takes b5. So over here we have 3 pawns. Here we have bishop, knight, and pawn. But we are attacking the queen. The queen is overloaded here because it can, of course, capture the pawn, but then it will no longer be defending the rook. And there are, white has a serious advantage here. There are 2 ways to go about it. You can do what black did, which was to say, I'll actually just give up the rook. I'm up so much material, I'll give up the rook, I'll stop this pawn, I'll capture this pawn, and I'll find a way to defend. Which is something that we usually actually teach beginners, that it's absolutely okay to give back material when you are being attacked. If your opponent has sacrificed pieces, you can sometimes give back some or all of the material, and it will be fine as long as you repel the attack. Not in this particular position though. White still has the advantage after queen to b7, but this was the best try. And maybe we wouldn't have seen this immortal, brilliant, amazing, cool game, but more like a regular game if we had seen queen to b7 here. And of course it is extremely scary with these 3 pawns here. Like they are coming for you fast. We can already go c6, attacking the queen. We have, if you capture this pawn now, you still have the problem with the rook, and these pawns are only getting closer. So I know from analyzing the game with Stockfish that there are some very long variations where black is just about hanging on by the tips of his with his fingernails if he plays queen to b7. But he didn't. He captured the pawn. He went queen from c6, captures the pawn. Okay. And one of the rare occasions in this game where white actually just captures material. So, yay. My Majesty, I won a rook. Okay, it's pretty cool, but we're trying to make an immortal game here. Be cool. Right. I'm sorry, it's so silly, but I'm just having fun. Sorry. Okay, so, rook on a8. What does that do? Captures the rook. It's also attacking this bishop, which would be absolutely devastating. So what can black do? He can, of course, play queen to c6, defending the bishop and attacking the rook. So rook on f to a1, defending the rook, and also saying, ever since you played this little horsey guy to this awkward square, I have just noticed how bare your king is. And I've noticed that I can come in like this. There's a road. Goes from the a file, then it makes a turn on a7, and then it goes here on the 7th rank. And I'll come after your king. And black says, right. But I'm just going to capture all your pieces. I noticed, for instance, that when I play f5, your bishop is trapped. And when I capture your bishop, I will threaten the knight, which I can capture with a check, and I will threaten the queen. So I will capture the bishop with tempo. And that was of no concern whatsoever for Grigory Serper, who played rook on 1 to a7. And this is a very big problem, because these two pawns are so strong. This d pawn here is providing this checking square, and there are some variations. You can check them yourself if you want to, but if this is allowed, it will end in checkmate, or absolutely a disastrous loss of material for black at the very least. But there is a cool defensive resource, which is knight back, stopping this rook coming in. So this knight is looking longingly at this f4 square where it wanted to go. Oh, I wanted to go over there. I had to go back. Came from here, went here, then it had to go back to defend. So in terms of energy, you could say that black put all these eggs in the basket of this attack here, or like invested all this energy in this attack here, over here. And if that attack is just not coming through, which it doesn't look like it's coming through, then that energy is just wasted. So the real question is, because you have energy and matter, you know, E equals mc squared, and matter is of course material, and the energy, can that be transformed into material, and will it be enough? Will the equation be balanced in the end? Will you have gotten enough material for the sacrificed energy? Well, I promised you that white was going to sacrifice every single piece. We see all kinds of possible sacrifices in chess in this game. And here is the exchange sacrifice with rook takes c8. So if you don't know what an exchange sacrifice is, it is taking the rook worth generally 5 points and exchanging it for, a bishop or a knight, generally worth about 3 points. That's called the exchange sacrifice. And of course, the bishop was defended by the queen. So what was the point of this sacrifice? The point was to drag the queen away from d5. So it's not like he's not wasting time making room for this bishop to escape. No. You're just sacrificing pieces and attacking the king. That is what we are doing. So queen to d5 here. And before with the queen on c6, of course, the queen would have been lost. And that wouldn't have, we can't sacrifice the queen just yet. Don't worry though, we will sacrifice her a couple of times, like 3 times later, but not yet. Not yet. So this threatens queen e6 with a check. There's also a possibility of maybe going rook a8. The depending if black somehow finds a way to protect e6, which I don't think is really possible, but that's also like a resource in the position. And it's of course also a sacrifice. Of course it's a sacrifice. Queen to d5 is of course also a sacrifice of the bishop. Of course. You might as well capture that bishop in this position because there's no real way to defend e6, queen e6 check that I have been able to find at least. So this is check. You can't go here. That would be checkmate. Doesn't work. Actually only one other legal move. King to f8. And here, something quite rare in this game happens. Which is white capturing some material. Like we also saw with the first rook, capturing this rook. We see it again here. Rook takes knight. Like so. It looks dangerous. Threatening checkmate. You could even see, as I was sort of hinting before, that it's winning material. In fact, it's a sacrifice, of course, because this pawn can capture this knight with check. And I don't know how he was able to figure all of this out. He must have been so inspired. You can't even accuse him of cheating, because in 1993, no computers were close to being strong enough to figuring out all these ideas. Not even close. Like he's doing all of this stuff and just saying, capture my bishop, capture my knight with check. It's no problem. I'm just going to sacrifice more and more and more and more material. He's not even capturing this pawn, by the way. He's playing king f8. King f1, I mean. King f1. Using the pawn to shield him. That's quite clever. That's quite a good idea that you can also use in your games. Because the pawn is immortal. Because like there's no way black can capture that pawn. It's a double-edged sword, of course, because it's taking away some squares. If the king is chased away, it could promote, but it's a strategical positional idea that's very handy to have in your tool bag. So remember that you don't always have to capture this pawn. You can hide behind it with the king. Now, checkmate is threatened. So, queen to e8, defending. And we've been sacrificing a lot of pieces. But we still have pieces left. That can't be. Hey, we need more sacrifices. On it, boss. Check. It looks really good. But not for the reason that I first thought. I was like, when I looked over the game, I was like, yeah, that's very hey, wait a minute. It's a sacrifice again, of course. The queen can just capture that. Because it's protected by the king. So if we capture here, capture, and you have no more pieces, and I have 3 pieces left. Okay, so the queen captures the rook. Was that a blunder? Of course not. It was just yet another sacrifice in this insane game. What is the point? Queen to c8, There is exactly one legal move, because this pawn is an attacking unit, taking away the escape square. So queen blocks. And you are down a lot of material as white here. So can you see the winning idea? The justification of all these sacrifices. These guys. How about that? How cool is that? Yeah, it's protecting the queen. And the problem is that if you capture my queen, I will make a new queen. I will then have a queen against 3 pieces. Well, that could be a fair fight, maybe. 5 points, 3 points, 3 points. That's 11 points. Queen, 9 points. Maybe it's an advantage to black. Yes, of course. If it were not for the fact that these are totally like discombobulated over here, and this pawn is also close to queenie. So there will be 2 queens. And the king would like that, huh? 2 queens, yeah. It's easy to win with 2 queens. So it doesn't work to take the queen. What does work? Nothing really, but the best try is what the Greek grandmaster played. King f7. So that the rook is activated, protecting the queen. We take. This is check because this is a new queen with a cool hat. We don't have to go find the extra queen that came with the chess set because it's immediately recaptured by this rook. Okay. Queen is attacked by the rook. And amazingly, white is still winning. There is a cool little sequence you'll see. Queen to b7, check. Rook to e7, defending the check, attacking the queen. And what is the winning idea, guys? What do you think? Yes, you in particular. You watching this video right now, not all the others. You, what do you think? What is the winning idea? My hint is that you've seen this idea just a few moves ago. And you also know, of course, that you want to sacrifice pieces. We have now sacrificed all these pieces. You have also lost a queen, but you still have your original queen. But you want to sacrifice pieces. So how about playing pawn to c6, sacrificing the queen? Because actually we cannot capture this queen because a new queen will appear on this square and we can't stop it. And when you're playing and you're seeing like this absolutely inspired demonstration of power that Grigory Serper was just like he was just stonking on black, it seems like you can forget maybe that black was really or is a really strong player. And maybe I should talk a little bit about some of the defensive venom in some of his ideas and some of his moves, because it looks like I've been focusing so much on the brilliance of white that it looks like black is just doing nothing. But for instance, here's an example of all the stuff that Grigory Serper had to see to make all of this work. So black plays pawn to e4. What is that about? He's not capturing the queen. Is it a pawn sacrifice? Can you capture here? No. What is it about? So let's say that you make a snap decision, you capture the pawn. Now the problem is that now we can capture the queen. Because now this square is available, controlling the queening square. Whoops, you sacrificed all your pieces in a slightly wrong way, and now you're losing. So, and all of black's defensive moves had points like that. Small ideas that mean that white could have lost the game like that if they just missed an idea or played some slight inaccuracy. Which is impressive defense by black, but also just makes it just makes white's attack so much more impressive, because he figured out all the traps, figured out all the tactics, and he still made this just sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. So we can't take this pawn. Also, of course, this pawn is marching forward. So we also march forward. Now we don't want to queen on this square that can be defended by the bishop. We want to queen on c8. But black plays e3. And that we have to sort of discuss an extra reason why we saw this move here. Because now black actually has a very serious threat. If it was black's move again, black would be winning, would simply go check. Notice how this pawn that white left here earlier is protecting this square, so you have to capture it now. What is the problem? The problem is that this is checkmate. It will make a queen. The queen will be protected by the rook. There is nowhere to go, and that's checkmate. Okay. So if we return to this pawn coming forward, it's not just about changing the desired queening square from b8 to c8. It is also about making room for the queen to come in and give a check. So that black does not have time to execute this checkmating idea. We see a little dance. This dance you will very often see at a very particular moment in top level chess, or even just club chess in standard time controls. Check, back, check, here, check, here. So if white plays this check, it will be a threefold repetition. The game will be a draw. Why did this happen? Well, if you look at the score sheet, you'll notice that we just passed the 40th move of the game. And in classical chess, in classical time control, where you have a lot of time, you get an extra hour. Both players get an extra hour when you reach the time control at move 40. So this little forced dance here was simply a way for white to get over that threshold, to be sure that he has enough time to execute the winning idea of his plan. Also, there can be a psychological aspect that I know Grandmaster Ben Feingold is a big advocate for. I'm not sure I think it's that interesting, but you should know that some people assign great value to forcing a repetition if you have the advantage, and then at the last moment not going into the draw to sort of show who's boss, to show that you are toying with your opponent to assert dominance. And allegedly that should make it harder to play the game psychologically for your opponent. I mean, if you're into that stuff, go for it. I don't think, that's not how I play chess. Also, I don't play chess at this level anyways. I would love to be able to play this game though. Like, now we see a queen sacrifice, of course, for the rook. Check, king takes. Now there are no more pieces left. The queen has been sacrificed a number of times. And white is, of course, still winning. Pawn to c8, and a queen. We see a queen again. And the checkmating idea with e2 to e1 doesn't work anymore because there is no rook protecting. So for the first time, white is up material now. But you have to be a little bit precise here. I would probably lose this with white. You see, for instance, this venomous idea. I'll explain the sort of venom in the idea in a couple of moves. Bishop to h6. Queen to c5 check. King back to e8. Queen b5 check. King d8. And the point, queen b6 check. So that after king e7, we can now capture this pawn. So what? So this is a fork, of course, on these two pieces. So why did the grandmaster playing with the black pieces set himself up to be forked like this? Well, it's because he had a really cool trick up his sleeve that I would have probably fallen for and lost this game. Imagine how horrible that must feel if that happened. And the trick comes here. The venom comes here. Check. So, two legal moves. One losing, one winning. What do you do? Which pawn do you take? Hopefully, not this one. Because this knight move with a check and madame to the queen would be very, very heartbreaking. So, we have to take the other pawn. And now we see the cool idea with bishop h6, which is bishop check on e3. So you can't go here, protected by the pawn. Can't go here, protected by the bishop. Can't go here, protected by the pawn. So what do you do? We already saw this idea. Check, picking up the queen. You can get the bishop, but black will either win or maybe with like some insane play, white can get a draw. This is the position. So you can't capture the pawn. Can you capture the bishop? No, because then you are no longer defending the queen. queening square. We'll make a queen, be up material, and win. So, in this position, only winning move is king back, setting up the pieces for the next game, because king goes back to his starting square on e1, and that is the game. At this point, black had enough, no more tricks, and black resigned. So, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much would you wish that you had played this game? How must he have felt when he went to the press conference after the game? It's just saying that's probably the most amazing thing he's going to do in his entire life, unless he becomes a father or something. I mean, it's so beautiful. I know that some of my viewers are developing or learning chess players and are not always sure why the game is over when it's over. So I'll just explain, because this is of course not checkmate, but black has no argument for why he could win the game. He's down material, and he has no threats, and this queen has a lot of threats. It can try to pick up the knight, check, pick up the knight. It can try to pick up the bishop. It can pick up these pawns, and there is no way that black can stop it. Black can play defensive moves and delay it for some moves, but there is no way that this constellation of pieces can defend against the queen. And also we should note that there's actually 3 connected pawns here. So once we sort of pick up one of these pieces, we'll also just start marching these down the board and make a new queen. And win with 2 queens. Very, very easy, trivial win for a grandmaster. So that's it. That's the game. I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. Oh, how I enjoyed it. I'm sorry I was a little bit silly. But, you know, we're just having fun. Just having a good time with chess. Thank you for watching so much. Thanks to Alex for suggesting the game. I hope you will sleep